Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Good to see you all. Tonight we'll continue with our study of Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Tonight we will finish chapter 12 with verse number 8, and we will finish the chapter. And if you have any questions or any comments as we go, you can please ask. So we'll begin with verse number 8. So just to give some context, Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. The first 6 chapters discuss karma yoga. The last 6 chapters discuss jnana yoga. And the middle 6 chapters discuss bhakti yoga. So this is the last chapter of the middle 6. And bhakti means devotion. And the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna himself, by God himself. And especially it is teaching us how to devote our existence for the pleasure of Krishna, for the pleasure of God. So that's what the Bhagavad Gita is ultimately teaching. This chapter, the last section of this middle section, which is the most important section. So in chapter 12, we'll hear about, the chapter is actually entitled Devotional Service. So we're going to hear some further discussion by Krishna himself about devotional service or developing our love for Krishna. Okay. Text number 8. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. So this particular verse it's basically the essence of bhakti, or the essence of devotion, because Krishna is saying that we should fix our mind upon him. This is actually the final instruction at the end of chapter 18 also. Fix your mind. Now, the entire yoga process is based upon fixing the mind. That's why people do yoga, for example. What we call yoga these days is actually asana. Asana is posture. When we say we're going to a yoga class, we're going to a posture class. And also pranayama will be added into the class, which means breathing techniques. That's really what people are doing. Asana and pranayama are just two aspects of yoga, right? But these days, that's what people call yoga. But there's actually much more to the yoga system. The reason we do asana means moving the body, and pranayama, which means breathing, is to make the body healthy so that you can fix your mind on something higher. That's actually the point of it. So we're meant to fix our mind on something higher. And the yoga process is all about controlling the mind. And that is something that people in this modern age, which we call Kali Yuga, quarrel, people find it hard to control their minds. It's basically the problem with the world. People can't control their minds. And when you don't have a controlled mind, you see the problems it causes. That's why the world has so many problems right now. People don't have control of the mind. So in our process, which is the Bhakti Yoga process, the process of devotion to Krishna, we are taught to fix the mind on Krishna. Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Mammana bhava mad bhakto, always think of me. And that's what he's saying here in chapter 12, think of me. And if you do that, you will become peaceful, right? And your life will be happy and satisfied. But you have to learn to control the mind. So that is the process which has been spoken about in the Gita. and engage your intelligence in me. Krishna is referring to the hierarchy, which he has spoken about previously. The mind is meant to be controlled by the intelligence, not the other way around, right? What does the intelligence do? The intelligence distinguishes or discriminates. For example, the mind might see a chocolate cake. So what does your mind usually say when you see a chocolate cake? Eat me. Yeah. Mind says, eat the chocolate cake. And my mind, at least, I don't know other people's minds, but my mind says eat the whole thing. Right? Just eat it, the whole thing. But then the intelligence kicks in. The intelligence says, oh, maybe one piece would be better. Right? So the intelligence discriminates. The intelligence is meant to control the mind. But in this day and age, it's usually the other way. The mind controls the intelligence. The mind says, no, I want to eat the whole thing. So now the intelligence has to work out how to assist the mind in satisfying its desires. So we should not allow our mind to take control of us, right? But we should use the intelligence. So the Bhagavad Gita, these ancient books, are spoken to make the intelligence strong. That's why we have classes like this. That's why we read the books on a daily basis, because the intelligence becomes strong. And when the intelligence is strong, you can control the mind. If your intelligence is not strong, then people don't have good intelligence in this day and age. So they make the wrong decisions. But when you have intelligence, which is strengthened by spiritual wisdom, you make the right decisions. Your life doesn't become a mess because you know what to do. So this is the process. So Krishna is saying here, engage your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. And that's the goal. The goal of life is to absorb the consciousness in Krishna, in his service. Just like that's what we do here at Hare Krishna Valley. Right? We dedicate all of our activities to serving Krishna. Right? What do? We clean the place. Why? Because it's Krishna's temple. Right? Everything we do here is meant to have a deeper reason or a higher purpose or a higher cause. And when you act like that, you have satisfaction in your soul. And if you don't act like that, you don't feel satisfied within. So this opening verse is very powerful. I'll just read a little bit of the commentary by Prabhupada. Prabhupada is the founder of our movement who translated all these literatures. One who is engaged in Krishna's service lives in a direct relationship with Krishna. So there is no doubt that his position is transcendental from the very beginning. A devotee does not live on the material plane. He lives in Krishna. The holy name and the Lord are non-different. Therefore, when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue of the devotee. One who does not engage in such service cannot understand how this is so. So the main practice in our tradition, the Hare Krishna movement, is kirtan. When we chant together, when we do the chanting. So we chant the names of Hare Krishna or Radha and Krishna. And when we do this, Abhinitwan Nama Namano, because the name of Krishna and Radha are not different from them, it has spiritual potency. Nijasava Shaktis means all of God's power and energy are within the sound vibration of his name. So when you chant Hare Krishna, you feel his presence, right? And it purifies you, because when you come in contact with Krishna, you feel purified. So Prabhupada is saying here that we should chant. That's how the mind will come under control. We chant for 2 hours every day. That's our sadhana, our practice. So we chant every day to fix the mind on Krishna and then we will feel peaceful and satisfied. So that at the time of death, we will remember Krishna, which is the goal of life. I've told before, I was in a car accident in 2009, and I don't remember the accident because I was hit on the head, so I don't remember the actual accident. But I asked my wife, I said, what happened while we were crashing? And she said, you were chanting Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Right? So that's what we're meant to do. Right? The mind is meant to be fixed on Krishna. So at the time of death, if you remember him, you will go to him. So that is what we are focusing on. That is what we are practicing to fix the mind on Krishna. So that's what Krishna is speaking about at this point. Text number 9. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So, Krishna is a practical person. Krishna is called the Adi Guru. The Adi Guru means the original teacher. We have a guru because we have gurus in our tradition. The purpose of the guru is to guide you to go back to Krishna, right? Back to God. That's the responsibility of the guru. And a guru will analyze the consciousness of the disciple or the follower. And everyone is different. Right? Everyone has a different level of commitment and understanding. So if someone is not so committed to a spiritual path, you can't instruct them in the same way you would instruct someone who's very committed to a spiritual path. Otherwise, it won't work. It's like if you're a doctor, right? Like in Ayurveda, which is natural, Ayurveda. Yeah, so natural medicine. You don't give the same treatment to widely see. You don't give them the same treatment. You don't give the same medicine because they have a different need. So the guru will give instructions according to the level of progress of the disciple. So here, what Krishna is doing, he's saying, well, if you can't do this, do this. Because Krishna is God ultimately. So someone who's intelligent will understand how to instruct another person. And Krishna is the most intelligent. So he said, okay, if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do that, do that. If you can't. So he gives various levels. So it's all inclusive. We don't expect, because, like we meditate for 2 hours a day. We don't expect everyone to do that. Everyone's not ready for that. Everyone can do 10 minutes a day. Anyone can do that. But 2 hours is like a whole nother level of commitment. So when we instruct someone, we do it according to their level, right? So they can progress. So that's what Krishna is doing here. So in the last verse, he said, basically just said, fully give yourself to me, fully dedicate yourself to me. In this verse, he says, if you fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So in other words, this is called sadhana. Sadhana means practice, right? We have to practice things, right? How do you become expert in anything? You have to practice. Like, who's the best tennis player in the world? Whoever it is, whoever it is. Alcaraz at the moment, or Sinner, at the moment. You know, if you go back a few years, it was Djokovic. Go back a few years, it was Federer. Go back a few years, it was McEnroe. Go back, you know, it's like whoever the best is. You don't become the best at something or expert at something unless you practice all the time, right? So it's the same in spiritual life. If you want to develop devotion to Krishna, to God, you have to practice every day, right? It doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up suddenly you're enlightened, right? It's a practice. So that's what Krishna is saying here. Okay, if you're not ready to fully dedicate yourself, then practice. Do something every day. Like we said, just do 10 minutes of chanting a day. If you can't do 2 hours like we do, that's okay. But do something, and then gradually you will evolve in your consciousness. Prabhupada says here, in this verse, 2 different processes of bhakti yoga are indicated. The first applies to one who actually developed an attachment for Krishna by transcendental love, and the other is for one who has not developed an attachment by transcendental love. For this second class, there are different prescribed rules and regulations. One can follow rules and regulations, one can follow to be ultimately elevated to the stage of attachment to Krishna. So that's what's being described here, that if you're not ready to fully give yourself to Krishna, then you can practice and then gradually elevate yourself over time. Bhakti yoga is the purification of the senses. At the present, the senses are always impure, being engaged in sense gratification. In the purified state, the senses come directly in contact with Krishna. For spiritual life, one must be elevated to the pure stage of love. That stage of love can be achieved by the practice of devotional service performed with the present senses. So there's a verse which says, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. We have to learn to purify the senses, right? Because the senses want engagement, right? What are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses? You know, sight, yeah, taste, yeah, smell, yeah, touch, and hearing, right? So these are the 5 knowledge acquiring. We call the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. The senses need engagement constantly. The senses always want to look at something attractive. The senses want to taste something. The senses want to smell something nice. They want to touch something soft. They want to hear something pleasant, right? The senses need engagement constantly. So what do we do in our tradition? Because if you don't control your senses, you will use your senses to enjoy in this world, and that will further implicate you in the law of karma, which is what everyone in this world is doing, right? Everyone's using their senses in this world, right, to try to enjoy their body, which is basically just what everyone does in this world. You know, drink this, touch that, see this, look at that, hear this, taste that. Right? That's what everyone does all day long. But they're leading that they are degrading their consciousness instead of elevating their consciousness. You see everyone in the world, they're just like consciousness going down, 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 because they don't know what to do with their senses. So what we teach in our tradition, in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, we use our senses, but we use it in a way that elevates our consciousness. Just like our food, right? The Hare Krishna food. You know, so did you see in the kitchen, we cook and then we offer it to Krishna? Yeah, so you saw that. And we don't taste it while we're cooking it, right? So we teach people this. We don't taste it while we're cooking. So in other words, we're not controlled by the sense of taste, right? We control that sense because we think until Krishna has tasted it, it's offered to Krishna, then I will taste it. So do you understand the subtle point? It's not for my pleasure, it's for his pleasure. We still get to taste it, but not first. we are second, because love means you must be second. That's love, right? Love means the other person is first. That's love. Why does everyone fight in this world? Because everyone wants to be first. Oh, it's for me. I'm first. Then people argue. Oh, you didn't satisfy me. No, you didn't satisfy me. That's what people argue in this world. And if a relationship, any relationship, especially a relationship with God, but any relationship, it becomes successful when you put the other person first. That's when it becomes successful. And when you put Krishna first, then you become completely satisfied. So that's how we control our senses. We like tasting nice things. We like eating nice things. Like on Sunday, it was a nice meal, I think. Quite nice. Yeah. You ate some? Yeah, it was quite nice, right? Yeah. But we didn't taste it first. We offered it to Krishna first. Then we took it and we're satisfied. So you understand the point? Right? Purifies the senses. Right? Senses are still happy. Our food's the best, actually. Hare Krishna food's better than any food. Right? We have the best food, but we also learn to become selfless while we're cooking and while we're preparing the food, and even while we're eating it. Right? We always think, oh, this has been tasted by Krishna. That's what makes it delicious. Right? So it's a different state of consciousness. Otherwise, and that's the way you purify your senses. Does it make sense? The senses become pure because they're not used for something selfish for me, but they're used for the benefit of another person and ultimately for Krishna. And that's how you become happy. So that's what's being mentioned here, that we need to control our senses. Love of God is now in a dormant state in everyone's heart. And there, love of God is manifested in different ways. But it is not contaminated by material association. Now the heart has to be purified of the material association. And that dormant natural love for Krishna has to be revived. That is the whole process. So what's being described here is Nityasiddha Krishna Prema. That the propensity to love, that is within all of us, right? We all have a propensity to love. That's obvious, I think. But the problem is, in this world, we all place that propensity to love on the wrong objects or the wrong people, right? In other words, that propensity to love should be given to Krishna first, to God first. Then it is given. Same principle. We love people. We all love each other. Right? We all try to be respectful and loving to each other, but only because it's connected to that higher love. And we see everyone in relationship to that. Right? So that propensity to love is there. It's within us. But it has to be used properly. And people are very sentimental about that these days. Everyone tries to love this and love that and love that. And it doesn't, you look at around the world, the divorce rate's higher than ever before. And then people, I remember, years ago, I brought a dog. And I thought, because I'd been hurt by human relationships. It was a long time ago when I was 17, 18, before I became a Hare Krishna monk. I'd been hurt by human relationships. I thought, I'll get a dog and I'll just give all my love to the dog. But that didn't satisfy me either. I didn't feel completely happy. I felt like, something's still missing. So then I give it to this person. And then they would hurt me. And then, now I don't feel completely. So, we can keep trying everyone in the universe. You're never going to be fully happy. Right? The only person who can make you fully happy is much higher. So that's what's being mentioned here. That loving propensity is there, but we have to find the right place. Right? We have to place it on the right person. Then we'll be properly satisfied. To practice the regulative principles of Bhakti yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert guru, follow certain principles. One should rise early, take bath, enter the temple, and offer prayers and chant Hare Krishna. Then collect flowers to offer to the deity, cook foodstuffs to offer to the deity, take prasadam, and so on. And one should constantly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. This practice can help anyone rise to the level of love of God, and then he is sure of his progress into the spiritual kingdom. So these are practices, because this verse is talking about practice. The first practice is we rise early. When I go to India once a year for my spirit to really focus on my spiritual practices, we get up at 3:30 in the morning, because we want to be focused in our meditation and so on. When I'm living here in the West, I get up usually between 4 and 5 in the morning. You have to rise early because that's the best time for, I think we were saying that the other day, right? Yeah. That's the best time for spiritual practice. It's called Brahma Muhurta. Brahma Muhurta means 1.5 hours before the sun rises. So when you see what we call dawn, when the first light comes and okay, now the sun's coming, that takes 1.5 hours until the sun rises. That time, that's the best time, right? And if you're awake at that time, then it becomes addictive because, it's the best time of the day, and then, like I was a monk for years. So, we'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, every day for years. And then it just becomes a part of your life, right? Because it's the best time for your spiritual practices. Right? And if you're clear in the morning, if you're doing your chanting and your meditation in the morning, the rest of the day becomes easy. But if you get up late and then you're tired and then, you don't have the same kind of experience generally. That's why, in spiritual practices, we rise early. Okay. Text number 10. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So now Krishna he's saying the best thing you can do is fully dedicate yourself to me. Then begin to practice doing that. Okay, you can't do that? Work for me. If you can't get up early in the morning and do chanting and meditation, all these things, just work. But do it for me. That's what we do here. Like all our volunteers, they come here. All right. Some of them don't get up early in the morning. Okay, that's okay. If you can't do it, then we'll give you meaningful work that will connect you to Krishna. Spiritual progress. We've seen many volunteers over the years, many, many. Did you see the little book on the dresser as you walk in? People write all their memories.
No, I've not seen it yet.
Okay, it's down there. There's a couple of them actually. Over the years, people write their memories there, and you read them. Many, many, many people. They came here, and everyone leaves with something. Maybe not everyone can do everything that we do. That's okay. Because Krishna is saying, here, just do whatever you can. But people, they learn something, they grow, they become a little more enlightened generally. So Krishna is saying here, if you can't do spiritual practices, then just work for me. Everyone can do something, whatever you're good at, right? If you're good at painting, then paint. Right? If you're good at cooking, then cook. If you're good at cleaning, then clean. Everyone's good at something, right? If you're not good at anything, then we'll teach you. What's that?
Learn.
Yeah, learn. We'll teach you. We'll teach you how to do things. So that's the point. So Krishna is making it easy. That's what the guru does. The guru makes it easy. That's why we have gurus. You go to them and they say, okay, you do this, you do that. according to your artika or your qualification. If you're spiritually progressed, you can do like this. If you're not spiritually progressed, okay, you do that. That's okay. So Prabhupada says, one who is not able even to practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga under the guidance of a guru can still be drawn to this perfectional stage by working for Krishna. If one cannot directly practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, he can try to help those engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness. There are various fields of activity, and one should be interested in such activities. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to the higher state of love of God, whereupon one becomes perfect. So if you can't do spiritual practices, then just work. Dedicate your activities to Krishna and you will progress. Prabhupada then says, every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. Right? Prabhupada, that's the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. He's a very practical person, very practical person. So he says here, every endeavor requires these four things. You need land, like we own this 200 acres, right? Makes life a lot easier when you've got land. Otherwise, you've got nowhere to live. You have to rent and then life becomes a headache. Okay, we own this, good. So it's one thing is done. Capital means money. Like on the weekend, we had open day and retreat, people were here. So we charge them money, right, to come here and to experience the facility that we provide here, right? Because we need money. Because, we've got to pay for the lights and we've got to pay for the water and we've got to pay for the gas and we've got to pay for the paint. We've got to pay for everything. Everything costs money now, right? So then you need capital. If you don't have money, you can't do things. Right? Organization, right? You need organization. If things aren't organized, everything falls apart. Right? So you need people who are good at organizing things. And labor. It means you need people to do things. That's why, thank you for helping us. You come here, you can contribute full way. We've had volunteers coming here for years, right? It helps us. That's good. It's, people provide labor, right? Work, right? We need things done. Oh yeah, they do it like that. That's very, very helpful because it means then we can do more, right? More people who help, then the more we can provide. Because this whole place is to provide a facility so people can come here and learn about higher things, right? So then it's meaningful when someone contributes. So without these four things, you can't do anything. You need land, capital, organization, and labor. These are the four elements. And text 11. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, it may be that one is unable even to sympathize with the activities of Krishna consciousness because of social, familial, or religious considerations, or because of some other impediments. For one who has such a problem, it is advised that he sacrifice the accumulated result of his activities to some good cause. Such procedures are described in the Vedic rules. Thus, one may gradually become elevated to the state of knowledge. One is sure to purify his mind gradually, and in that way, and in that purified stage of mind, one Krishna consciousness. Of course, Krishna consciousness is not dependent on any other experience because Krishna consciousness itself can purify one's mind. But if there are impediments to accepting Krishna consciousness, one may try to give up the results of his actions so that someday one may come to the stage of pure devotional service. So this is an interesting point, because if someone can't give everything, their whole consciousness, then Krishna says just do practice, do sadhana. If you can't do that, then work. And now he's saying if you can't do that, like if you can't work directly for Krishna, then Krishna is saying just do something for other people, because then you become a little bit selfless. Like when I was a young monk, many, many years ago in the 90s, I used to go onto the streets of Melbourne or different places around the world, different cities, and people would be walking down the road, and I would say, "Excuse me, are you from Melbourne or from another place?" So people would say they're from Melbourne. I'd say, "Great, I've got this book for you." And people would say, "I'm from some other place." I'd say, "Great." So we give out these spiritual books to people. So that was my service for many, many years. Just I'd stand on the street all day. People would walk past and say, "Excuse me, you from Melbourne or somewhere else?" Wherever they said they're from, I give them the book, and then I'd ask for a donation. Say, "Please give a donation so we can print more books," like that. So I did that for many years. We sold thousands of books. Books about spiritual knowledge. So these books, they help enlighten people. So people would give us money, we would give them the book, they would learn spiritual life, and we would use the money to make more books. So one thing is that people would walk on the street, and after some time you could usually say, "Oh, that person will stop, but that person won't stop." Usually. Sometimes you're surprised. Someone you think, "Oh, they will stop," they don't stop, they just keep walking. They're not interested. And then other people you think, "Oh, they would never stop," and then they stop. So you can't tell. But one thing I noticed over the years, I'd say, "Excuse me, you from here?" And mainly ladies, but men as well, they would stop. They'd say, "Oh, what do you need?" And I would say, "What do you do for a living?" Right? And I noticed a pattern over the years that people who are nurses would always stop, because they're already practicing giving their life to others, serving others. So that's what Krishna is saying here. If you can't work for him, at least do something for someone, because that will make your heart soft. And if your heart is soft, it's easier to become a spiritual person. Right? It's easier. Right? If you're too selfish, just too into yourself, then, but if someone's a nurse or a counselor or one of those they're much more selfless, right? So that can help you become more spiritual, right? By being a selfless person. People who are just into themselves, then it's very hard for them to take the spiritual life. But people who are selfless by nature, it's much easier for them to take the spiritual life. Does it make sense? Yeah. So Krishna is saying here, if you can't work for me, just do something for someone. At least be selfless. Then you can progress. Okay. Text number 12. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, for those who are actually not able to follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, it is better to cultivate knowledge, because by knowledge, one can understand his real position. Gradually, knowledge will develop to the point of meditation. By meditation, one can understand Krishna by a gradual process. There are processes which make one understand that he is the supreme. And that sort of meditation is preferred if one is unable to engage in devotional service. If one is not able to meditate in such a way, then there is Varnashram Dharma. But in all cases, one should give up the fruits of labor. This means to employ the results of karma for some good cause. So now Krishna is saying, cultivate knowledge, which is what we're doing now. This is necessary in spiritual life. You have to cultivate knowledge. Then you become learned. Right? You have to learn. That's why we read these books, study these books. You know, I'm teaching these courses on these books. I've been studying these books for over 35 years, right? Because that's what you have to do with your life. You know, you want to learn, you want to become wise, you want to be able to assist others in becoming enlightened themselves. So that's why we study. That's why that's what we're doing now. You know, it's for this purpose. You know, you learn and then you teach others. Like, you know, you became yoga. Why'd you become yoga teachers? You learned, now you got to teach others. You know, and that's the same principle here. We learn spiritual knowledge and then we teach others. You know, because yoga is not the goal. You know, yoga is just a way of keeping the body healthy so that you can use your energy to understand the goal. Vehicle. It's a vehicle, yeah. Yeah, you have to service the vehicle. It's like you have a car. If you don't service the car, there's a problem, right? Same with the body. If you don't look after the body, there's a problem. That's what yoga is for, to keep the body healthy. You know, so yoga it's a very good form of exercise. And pranayama, breathing, which is also very powerful for the nervous system. And, you know, if someone's anxious, what do we say to them? Breathe. Yeah, take some deep breaths. Yeah, but women, when they're having labor, when they're having a child, yeah, breathe. Said, breathe, breathe, breathe. Breathe, yeah, yeah. So you just breathe like that, and then the breathing, right, helps to regulate the nervous system, right? It calms the mind, right? But that's just the beginning, right? The body has to be healthy, the mind has to be peaceful. That's the beginning. That's not the end. You know, that's why we teach these things, right? But then now, once you're peaceful and healthy, then you can learn higher things. So that's what's being recommended here. Cultivate knowledge, then meditate. And then for meditate, as it says here, renounce the fruits of actions. We have to become renounced in spiritual life. Like I was a monk, so I had hardly anything for 8 years. You know, I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have a car that I owned. Didn't have a house that I owned. Had 4 sets of clothes. That was it. I was happy. You don't need things to be happy. You know, like you give up things. So we renounce. So it is saying here that if you renounce things, it's much easier for spiritual life. When you have too many material distractions, it's hard to focus on spiritual life. You know, when you've got too many material things, your mind becomes distracted. And then you're always worried. You know, you go overseas, you go to India or something, and the whole time you think, oh, I hope no one's breaking into my house. I hope no one steals my car. You know, it's like, yeah, if you have expensive things, then you're always thinking about those things. So Krishna is saying here to renounce. Now, Krishna is going to speak in verse 13, 14. He's going to speak about qualities that we need to cultivate to become close to him. Everyone in this world is trying to become attracted to someone else. Right? We all want to attract others. You know, like you're in the beauty industry. So why does everyone come and pay you money? They want to become attractive. Why? because I want to attract someone, right? But even the most beautiful person is not attractive if they're not beautiful on the inside. Right? We all know. Sometimes you see someone who's very attractive, but then they open their mouth and you think, oh my God, I don't want, I don't want it doesn't matter how beautiful they are, they're not attractive. So real beauty is within. Right? So if we want to attract Krishna, God, you have to become beautiful within. So now he's going to tell us what you need to do. He's making it easy. You want to attract me? Be like this. Right. So now he's going to discuss. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities. One who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So this is what we call a sutra. A sutra means a verse which is pregnant with meaning, which has deep, deep meaning within it. There's a lot in that verse that we just read there, right? There's so much there. What's the first way to become attractive to Krishna? One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities. One of the great diseases of the modern world is envy. Right? People are always envious of others, and when you're envious of someone else, you mistreat them. You're not kind. Right? Because I don't like you. I'm better than you, and then you're not kind to someone. And that's one of the big problems in the world. So when because Krishna's watching us all the time, he watches you all day long, right? He does. He watches you all day long. And he sees, are you envious towards someone else? Are you not kind to other people? And he's watching all the time. He's saying, no, you have to cultivate this kindness and lose your envy towards others. You have to don't think yourself a proprietor and be free of false ego. So give up your ego of thinking you are the proprietor. In other words, thinking everything belongs to you. Like people in this modern world, they work very hard to own a house. Why? Why? No one ever asks why. Why do we have to own a house? Oh, because it's my house. I'm the proprietor. It's my house. It's my fence. Right? It's my plant. People are stupid. It's my television. I had a friend, and he rang me a couple of years ago. He rang me. He said, I just spent $3,000 on a television, right? Big television, like big television. He said, I just spent 3,000. He said, there's nothing on television to watch, right? Spent all his money and energy to buy this thing. And he said, he rang me. He says, nothing to watch. I said, why do you think I haven't got a television? I don't need one. I haven't had a television for 30 years, right? There's nothing to watch, So people, they want to be the proprietor, right? They're driven by their ego. They want to own things. And you have to give up that consciousness, right? You have to give it up, right? Gradually over time, just give up that wanting to own. You can own things, that's okay, but don't become too absorbed in that consciousness. One who is equal in happiness and distress. Right? You have to be equal when you're happy. Yeah, everyone's happy when they're happy, but you have to be happy when you're not happy as well. Right? It's a deeper type of happiness, right? Like of money, right? And you think, okay, that's nice, and then you lose a lot of money, and you think that's okay. It doesn't, happiness and distress don't affect you. One who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination. Such a devotee is very dear to me. So Krishna is saying, if you become like this, you'll become very dear to me. You become dear to God, dear to Krishna, if you develop these qualities. Right? So he says, be devoted to me. Dedicate yourself to me. He for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. So someone, if you don't put others into difficulty, don't make other people's lives difficult. They might make your life difficult, as people are good at doing that. But the whole world's good at making everyone, just like they just went and bombed a whole country last week. Like you heard the war. Yeah. Doesn't even make sense. You're just putting other people into difficulty. Don't do that, right? Other people will put us into difficulty. That's different. That's something we have to tolerate. But we should not do that to other people, right? We should not make other people's lives difficult. And don't be disturbed by anyone. This is something we have to learn, not to be disturbed by others. Someone says something that we don't like, just don't say anything. Just like last week, I was away, just before you guys came here, I was away. And then I saw someone who, there's not many people in the world I don't like, but I saw someone I don't like because I don't like the way they treat other people. So I don't like this person. I don't hate them, I just don't like them. So they came up and spoke to me. And I spoke back to them, but then I thought later on, I thought next time I see them, I'm not going to say anything. I'll just go like, awesome. That's it. Because I don't want to get into anything with these people. So don't be disturbed by others, right? Don't let other people disturb you, right? You have to elevate your consciousness, and a good way of doing that is just not engaging with people, right? If someone's disturbed, just don't say anything. Just go and walk away. That's the best way to deal. And be equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety. My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So if you study these verses, you will understand how to please Krishna, how God will be happy. So it's he's making it simple. Just say, be like this, and you'll come back to me.
Can you repeat that? Be poised in fear, discomfort, and
fear and anxiety. Yep. Yep. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. It's not easy. It's not easy to be like this, but this is what we have to cultivate. You're not disturbed by auspicious or inauspicious things, right? When something's really good, you just say, oh, that's nice. I'm fortunate. I'm living in a place like this. It's nice. But sometimes we might find that we're in places that aren't so nice, and we have to be peaceful in those places as well. So it means you can't just always be attached to having everything nice all the time, because life isn't like that. Sometimes it's nice, but sometimes, I live here and it's beautiful. I've lived here for 18 years, but there's always challenges in life. You have to be equipoised. You don't become disturbed. When things are good, we're always happy, but when things are bad, you have to be happy as well. Right? You just have to be equipoised. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, one who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. One who doesn't care for residence. You know, when I was a monk, we used to sleep on the floor. You know, for years, I just slept on the floor. You know, never had a bed, you know, for years. It's okay. You don't care for residence. You know, if you have a bed, that's nice. Beds are nice. But if you don't have one, that's okay as well. And the final verse for this chapter. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So Krishna says, someone who completely engages themselves with faith. So spiritual life is based upon Shraddha or faith, right? Like I've never seen God. I've never seen Krishna. Yeah, I can't show him to you, but I can feel his presence. That's faith. Faith means trust in something sublime, right? Maybe you can't even see, but you just feel. Like if someone tells me God doesn't exist, I'm just like, what are you talking about? I can feel him all the time, every day, all the time. Like, there's no, it's not about the mind, it's about the consciousness. You can just feel these things. So that's called faith. You know. So it says here, people who engage themselves with faith. So your faith will be tested in spiritual life. It will be tested, right? How much are you dedicated to God, to Krishna? That will be tested. When everything's going good, oh yeah, you're dedicated to him. But when everything's miserable, are you still dedicated? You know, these are the tests that we have to go through in life, right, to see how devoted we actually are. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we finish?
Just to comment that what you were saying earlier on, a philosopher in the 80s, Dr. Wayne Dyer, he said that you'll see it when you believe on it.
Hmm.
Then, and that comes to the proverbial aha, when you haven't tasted chickpeas and you said, I don't like it. After you test it, you go, wow, they're nice. Then stripes to, you know, they believe in something that we see in each other that's God.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
nice.
a comment. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Any other comments or questions? Okay. We'll see you next week. Thank you for coming. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Babu.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
See you soon.
Listen.
I'll see you on Sunday.
Yeah, on Sunday.
Okay.
Okay,
See you soon.
Yes, sir.
Hare